Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Transitions for More. I'm your host, Mike Urko, a Marine Corps veteran. I've returned from Iraq and faced the challenges of PTSD, addiction, and grief to create a new life that is balanced and healthy in mind, body, and spirit. Each episode, I'll share some of my journey or interview inspiring veterans and subject matter experts to help us find that purpose and connection we all crave. You guys can follow the show on Instagram at Transitions for More. Join our TFW page on Facebook, Twitter, and transitionsformore.com. If you have any questions, comments, or topic ideas, feel free to email me at mike@transitionsformore.com. If you guys enjoy the show, please leave us a rating and review on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. Today we're speaking with John Witt. John is a Marine Corps First Sergeant, and he recently made a video that went viral after a funeral for a Marine who had taken his own life. And to see him speak from the heart and put so much feeling and emotion into what is obviously his passion, is taking care of other Marines and taking care of other service members. To see the anguish he felt is one of the reasons this really spoke to people and made its rounds and went viral. I'm going to post his original video in the show notes so you can all take a look at it. It's about 10 or 11 minutes long and definitely worth it. One thing I ask is that as a result of listening to this episode, we all call somebody up, or at the very least, send a buddy a text and ask how they're doing, ask how they are, what's going on, and connect with someone. All right, guys, let's get to the show. John, good morning. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here.
Thanks. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah. So what's your day looking like so far?
We're out here in Utah, so it's a little bit later than California time. But so far, just gonna knock this out, and then got the work day ahead of me.
Right on. And so for our listeners who aren't familiar with you yet, give us a little background about who you are and how you came to be where you're at.
So my name is obviously John Witt. I've been doing what I do now for the last 18 years. I joined the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old, right out of high school, graduated in June, was in recruit training in July, and kind of been doing that ever since. Got, what I believe a long career ahead of me, so no plans on getting out anytime soon. And that's pretty much, just...
Yeah. So when you got to the fleet, were you ever the youngest Marine to cut the cake at the ball?
Luckily, no.
You dodged that bullet.
Yeah, I turned 18 in actual recruit training, but when I got to the fleet, there were still people that were a little bit younger than me, which is interesting in its own.
Yeah. And so what kind of units have you been part of in your 18 years in?
Luckily, I've been everything. So I started off, I went straight to, a pretty much a logistics unit. And from there, I jumped over to a Marine Expeditionary Unit. Then I came back from Okinawa, and I went to a Wing Support Squadron, so an air unit. Then jumped over, went to the drill field, came back from the drill field, did another Wing Support Unit. Then I got promoted again. So then I moved and I went to a infantry battalion. And then I went to another infantry battalion within that. And then after that, I did the academy. So I taught at the academy for a few years, went back to Okinawa, did some more logistics units. And now I'm here doing this in a reserve unit.
Yeah. You really have been everywhere. I mean, air, land, and sea, man. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, like I said, luckily been a part of, all three of the major, big ticket items, and then also some time outside of the fleet, and then back in, the operating force, and now here in, this reserve unit.
And so you made a video that went viral, and I know a lot of our listeners have already seen it, but for those who haven't, can you tell us a little bit about it and and what went on to prompt you to make this video?
Yeah, so something that's very unique and something that I had never actually dealt with prior to being in this unit is we call them Marine Forces Reserve. They deal with 20,000 ish funerals a year, right? And they take care of about 90% of those. So these are units that are across the United States, and anytime a veteran passes away for whatever the cause is, that unit in that area will get tagged by headquarters Marine Corps to go ahead and conduct a funeral. So we've done some since I've been here. I've been here about 7 months, and we've done a handful of them, but a couple of them we've had to do were Marine veteran suicides. Little bit different than a old World War II veteran that passed away after being alive for 99 years and has great grandchildren. It's definitely a different atmosphere. So I went to a funeral, and before I went to it, again, Utah's not that big, and I kind of knew some information about this veteran suicide. So when I found out some of it, I talked it over with the gentleman that I talked to, and I was trying to mentally prepare, because the previous one that I did, I wasn't as mentally prepared for it. The spouse was very, very upset for obvious reasons. So I was trying, at least prep myself a little bit better. So we get to the funeral, and it's of course, outside, and all of a sudden just all of these people start to show up, and there's just a big group, and you can tell, most people can tell, other veterans, and just a big group of veteran Marines there. And what we were, kind of prepping for and getting ready for, everything kind of started to unravel for me personally and professionally when I started to see the amount of individuals there, and then I started to kind of, feel the vibe of what was, about to take place. And I explained it in the video, but I'm standing there myself and one of the other Marines that were on the other side of the casket, and the family came in, the wife and his kids came in, mother, father, parents, all that stuff. And sat down, and right to my left, probably less than 5 feet away. And we're standing, me and the other Marine are standing, the caskets in between us. And I start to hear the family obviously upset. And one of the veteran's sons consoling his mom. So for me internally, I started to, kind of think about a lot of different things. There's a lot of things going through my head, and across from me, behind the other Marine on the side of the casket, was a group of veterans that kind of formed a platoon formation, and I could see, these all were guys that are around, the same age. They were all probably, his platoon, in his platoon, or had been served with him, or whatever it might be. And then also the amount of just family and friends that were there. And there was a lot of people. So during this, as I hear, the young son, kind of consoling his mom, I'm trying to do everything I can to, keep it together, because at the end of the day, I still have, the mission to accomplish, which is to fold that flag and to present that flag to the next of kin, for, any veterans that passes away. So I'm trying to make sure that I can do what I'm still there to do.
Right.
And so I get that. We get the flag, we fold it. I'm emotionally, I'm trying to keep it together. I'm an emotional person anyway, so it's difficult, but I get it, and I present the flag, and after we present the flag, we depart. As I'm leaving, I don't know. I just again, a lot of things going through my head. I stop on the way home. So I stop on the way home. I was probably, 20 minutes from the house, but I couldn't finish, doing what I was doing. I couldn't finish the drive. So I stopped, and I recorded this video, and it's, I can't exactly remember. It's a 10 to 11 minute video. And it was really directed at my family and friends, to kind of explain to them, like, at the end of the day, I would much rather, answer the phone, call, talk to you, come to my house, I go to your house, whatever it may be, than attend your funeral. And it was kind of like my frustration kind of boiled over, and I was trying to express that to, my family and friends about what had just taken place. And again, this is something that we see a lot in the veteran community. We see a lot of still in the active duty community, and service members in general, is that we still have an issue with suicide. So I was just expressing that to my family and friends. And again, I was emotional throughout it. And so I posted it, and I had a couple of my good friends, they hit me up and they were like, can you make it public? Because again, I don't have a lot of friends on Facebook, anything like that. So it was just to that core group of individuals. But the comments and the things back was like, hey, can we do something? Can you push this? Can you allow us to push this?
Right.
And I was hesitant, to be honest, because again, there's still certain things that I didn't go back through. I didn't rewatch the video. It was kind of this moment in time. And then I went home, and, I kind of talked to my wife about what had happened. And she was like, if people are asking for you to allow this to be shared, it's probably for a reason. They're not just, wanting to put it out there just because. And she said, that it was impactful to her, even especially as a spouse. So I was like, you know what? Okay. So I let it go. I want to say the next day I made it public. And then I let my friends know, the couple that had asked for it, and then they shared it. So from there, like you said, it went viral. I didn't know what even viral was necessarily prior to
Yeah.
TAP. And it took off, and it went on different, platforms, social media platforms that I don't even own. And some of my friends that are on those were like, hey, saw your video. And I was like, oh yeah, really? Like, where? And they told me, it's like, oh, it's on this, or it's on that. And I was like, okay, cool. And then somebody sent me the video and was like, hey, like, I saw your video on this other Facebook page, military Snapchat channel. And so I went in there and I logged on there, and, like right now, it's got like 1.2 million views on there, where my video on my personal page has got like 450 plus thousand. So I was like, holy crap. And then that's kind of where I started to see, a lot of the comments come in, and all of the other stuff that came along with it. And it's kind of how, like, I got connected with, just even you, and was able to reach out and make this connection, because somehow, some way, the video ended up getting to where it was, to getting to people, to then,
yeah,
it's been interesting, to say the least.
Yeah. In my mind, it strikes a chord with people for a couple of reasons. One, the picture I think the public has of Marines, of military in general, but of Marines especially, is that of, stone face, zero emotion. And to see yourself, with tears being shed and speaking from your heart, it really makes a statement. It contrasts what I think people believe about or just know about Marines if they don't know any personally. And then the other reason is obviously we're fighting this epidemic of suicides in the veteran community. And we're not sure exactly why it continues to go on, despite all the awareness, despite all these campaigns, despite the VA having a suicide hotline, or a crisis hotline, despite all, everyone doing push-up challenges, and it's really frightening to notice that it continues to go on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's, it's something that we try, and we've made, at least, I know I can speak for what I've seen within my career, is Um, we definitely look at it a lot different. 10, 15 years ago, individuals with mental health problems or issues or concerns were kind of like, hey, like, we got the mission needs to be accomplished. Like, those are your personal problems, like, kind of deal with it on your own. And we completely look at it differently now, where we talk about it, we express it like it's okay to not be okay. There are so many different resources internally to the organizations, and then externally that I think that sometimes some people don't know about. But again, like you said, it's still happening, and it's still happening at a rate where, although I'm sure it would be much higher if we didn't do what we're doing now, but it still is a number where we might never get to zero, but if we can get as close to that as possible, then that's where I would at least be comfortable with it. The goal obviously would be to zero, but I also am a realist, and I understand that no matter how many different outlets we have or different people that are there to talk, or even if society as a whole changed their outlook on it, there's still the possibility that an individual member that's active or veteran still could possibly take their life for just the struggles that are going on in their life.
Yeah, and it's a tough one because all the guys I speak to and my own experience is that nobody wants to be a burden, and nobody wants to be the person to call up and say, hey guys, I'm not doing all right, I need some support. Like, literally nobody wants to be that person, but yet it's exactly what's needed. What I like to hear is that the attitude is changing within the armed forces, that it's being more and more recognized that, yeah, this is a real problem. We can't just say, suck it up. We can't just say, get over it. But why do you think it's so hard for individuals to reach out when they need the support?
Oh, I mean, I think it's generational, right? So I was talking with a friend about it, but we still have individual veterans, right? Our grandfathers and uncles and even dads, whatever it may be, that are these World War II and Korea and Vietnam veterans that still don't talk about what they did or what they saw or their own mental health issues. So because of that, generationally, it's not a conversation, right? It's not something that's been had. So now all of a sudden, when it's like, we live in a 2020 world, right, where things are at you can go on YouTube and you can see actual battles that were fought in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah,
Right. So you get this experience in a completely different way than, trying to relate to your, great grandfather when he was in World War II. And, the only way to see what he might have went through was because of some, like documentary on it. So because of that, generationally, kind of like the stonewall of like, I don't want to talk about this. I'm not going to get help. Like, I'm just going to be strong. It kind of created this where now individuals in the Marine Corps and others, at least in my opinion, are trying to be just as hard as the greatest generation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we can't, we just can't. We can't continue to do that because these aren't going to be the last wars that we fight in the future. If we don't do something now and we don't, actually go out there and show that not only is it okay, but not everyone does. Like, right? I express this thing. It's called individuals that are, in the military and the mental health issues, right? We're the rule. We're not the exception. So when we think about it, like somebody's like, oh, well, Johnny has these problems. He's not the exception. He's the rule. Most people, right? Most veterans have been put in some type of, difficult situation where they've went through something and there are these struggles. Now they might not be to the level of, some type of suicidal thoughts, right? But it doesn't mean that they still didn't have a bad day where they contemplated something that normally they wouldn't contemplate. But we still have this stigma that society helped create as well, that it's not a problem if we don't talk about it. Like,
Yeah.
let's
Just
not do.
ignore it. Yeah, that's a tough one. And as you're speaking, I was thinking a couple different things. Yeah, we have all this footage of current wars going on, uh, which made me think of just how we communicate now is less in person and more over social media or through posts. And what do people post when they are online? Their best version of themselves, or just an idea of how they'd like to be. And so if you're seeing all these smiling faces looking back at you, like, hashtag killing it, hashtag, crushing it, and everybody's purporting to do so well, it can be even more depressing, I think, for people who aren't doing well to say, wow, maybe it really is something wrong with me and maybe I don't belong here anymore. We get this false sense of how everyone else is doing just through social media alone. Is that something you've experienced looking at it?
Oh yeah, I mean, a lot of people, when it's like it comes out of nowhere, right? I've had a couple of friends that I would have never even thought because of that. Like even talking with them in person. But then same thing, the social media posts, like things are great, right? Lots of family pictures, lots of, travel and excitement and all this different stuff. And then come to find out, that individual is struggling because, the marriage is falling apart, or there was, infidelity, or there was all this other stuff. And you're like, wait a second, like, I can look at my Facebook, and 2 days ago you posted something that was, completely different. So yeah, absolutely. It gives this false sense of everything's okay. And then when something kind of sidelines you, you're like, wow. And it's definitely a different type of environment where, even right now, we're having this conversation, over the phone. And people do that now on a regular, especially, you add COVID into it, and we're more
Yeah.
separated. And, it definitely feeds into a lot of other issues. Like being alone's not fun, no, I don't think anybody, I mean, the extreme introvert, right, might enjoy it, but most people don't like being alone. And it's one of those things where you don't know that they're going through something when it doesn't look like they're going through something. And if they're not going to be
Exactly.
open, not going to talk to you about it, then it's hard, because everybody would want to do something about it. I don't think there's anybody that wouldn't want to help another individual, especially in the veteran community. But when you're talking with somebody and everything sounds great, and then you see things and everything looks great, like, how far do you dig in? How
Yeah,
far?
exactly. Like, how many times can you ask, no, but really, how are you doing, before you get, the other person gets annoyed and says, fuck off, bro, I'm good. So it's tough too, because if we look at communication as being mostly nonverbal, it's like we're like, even with a Zoom call, I can tell your body language, your posture, facial expressions, and you can tell mine, at least, from like waist up. So we have a better idea of what each other, what we're saying. But you try to do that with a text message, you don't get any intonation or inflection or anything. You're just going, you can't tell sometimes if the person's being sarcastic or just, what you see is what you get when they say something. So it makes it even harder, I think, these days, no matter how much we think we're really connected, for as long as we're not in person talking to each other.
Yeah. And I mean, it's difficult too. I have a 14-year-old daughter, and I just ask her questions or something, and it's always like this one liner, like, how are you doing today? Good. What'd you do at school? Nothing. So and it's like, okay, so then I got to dig a little bit deeper with that. But if you're talking with your friends, or your fellow veterans, or at work, whatever, and they're like, hey, what's going on at home? Oh, nothing, everything's good. I mean, you're going to take that at its face value, and you can't be somebody that's like, like they post something and be like, comment, is this real? Like, are you really this happy?
Yeah.
Like, then you sound like you're some weirdo, and that's not going to help the situation. And they might not, be as comfortable in talking with you. And that's why I think something in the video that a lot of the comments was like, it just, the emotion and the openness was real. And that's why I just tell my Marines, like, I'm not going to fake anything with you. I'm going to be as real as possible. And I'm going to let you know when I have a bad day, because it's something that we all do. And I'm not perfect. Like you said, this image of warriors as being, these stone cold, stone faced individuals that are cold hearted and, can just go out and kill and have no remorse is this image. And it's not the reality. It's
Yeah.
not the reality.
It's a myth, just like we have that myth of the World War II veteran who came home and everything was fine because they didn't talk about it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It's a complete myth.
Yeah. Married Susie and had 5 kids and, got a job at the bank and everything was gravy. And yeah, it's not, it's definitely not the reality. And I think when, a difference is when my grandchildren, ever ask me about, what I did or what I saw. And believe me, like, I didn't do or see things compared to a lot of my friends that, have went on, 5, 6, 7 deployments and every deployment wasn't, just a deployment to Iraq or Afghanistan. It was an actual, combat deployment, and rounds were downrange and they were the ones pulling them. I'm still going to be able to have that conversation with my grandkids and pass on that, hey, you know what, this is what I did. This is what I was able to see. This is what I was told by my friends, and have that conversation so they know that it's there and it's something that, could possibly be a reality in their future as well. Because, this generation's different than previous because, it's an all volunteer service, but we don't know what the future holds. We don't know what the next battle is going to be or the conflict.
Mm-hmm.
But we do, no matter what, have to get a hold and get control and win this battle. Because if we don't win this battle of, mental health issues and veteran suicide, it's just going to continue into the next war and beyond.
It seems like there's a time and a place for what you learn in boot camp to have, the tact and well, especially have that bearing, like nothing phases you. I mean, it's a great wartime survival way to be, because if we constantly broke down and processed everything, we experienced like in the moment, we're a liability. People are going to get killed because of it. So I think the context of it is important. Like, yes, this being stone faced or having this bearing like nothing affects you is important while you're completing a mission or while you're, outside the wire is one thing, but also knowing that the recovery phase, just like working out, the in between, the work you need to do on yourself or the work you need to do with another person is just as important to be able to continue that, operational readiness.
Yeah. And one of the things, different now is like the decompress, right? So after the fact, you do 6 months in 7 months, or if you're on, a larger scale, year-long deployment, in the Marine Corps, is that decompression afterwards. Like, how do we reintegrate into life? Like, you can't go from Friday where rounds were still, coming down range somewhere in that area. And then by the time you get home on Monday, because of the flights and everything, Monday, it's like, boom, now you're back in America and now you're driving and your family and questions. And it's like, you go from one extreme to, in reality, another exact opposite, but still another extreme. And we have to be able to decompress and have that time to reintegrate a lot smoother. And it's kind of the same thing, like getting out of the military. You're going from one extreme to now another extreme. Like, what happened, in the field day and formations and, someone telling you what to do on Friday, and you pick up that, DD 214. And then on Monday, you're just John. Well, how do we make that happen? And how do we make sure that mentally, we're strong enough to do it? It's definitely a question and a concern that I know a lot of people talk about. And we have to get that right, because if not.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And the other thing that you brought up, and I think that it's a point that's been made before, but I don't think can be overstated, is that today's generation of warfighters are going for multiple deployments. It was a rare thing in World War II to come back and go out again. less rare in Vietnam, but still most people did one tour and got out. And then, now like you talk about, if you stay in for a career, you're doing 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 deployments. If you stay in for one enlistment, you're doing 2, maybe 3 deployments. And so it's the tempo is a lot higher. So I think that the response that we need to have, like you're saying, needs to be adequate to meet that, demand, the need for it. And I'm wondering, what do you think that active duty and veterans can do to support each other or reach out for help when they need it? What do you think part of the answer is to that?
So it's something that I actually just talked about. I just went to a course, and we actually had, this discussion. At the end of the day, no institution is going to keep 100% of their people, right? Mm-hmm. So there's this automatic, we know that so many individuals are going to get out after their first term. And because of that, what we, in my opinion, is we start linking up active duty with these veteran organizations from day one. It costs I say the big picture, right? It costs us as an institution nothing when these organizations are already out there. These organizations are not asking for money. It's going to cost us time, but it's not going to cost us, any type of monetary, item. So say we start from day one, right? You go through recruit training, you go through your MCT or your SOI, your School of Infantry, your combat training. You go to your school, and then after your school, you go to your fleet unit. And from right then and there, something that starts to happen is in the fleet, we start to link up veterans organizations with you as you're already active duty. So over those, next 3.5 years that you're in on your first term, you've had multiple interactions with some type of veteran organization. And the list is enormous of the actual veteran organizations that are out there. And a lot that I've just honestly just learned about recently after this video. So, I mean, even myself at this rank, uneducated on the amount of stuff that was out there. I know about a lot, but I didn't know that there was so much. But so we start, putting them out there and then letting them make the decision for themselves what organizations they want to get. And I'm not saying joining things. I'm not saying go and join the VFW or, American Legion or Marine League or anything like that. If you want to, absolutely, that's something you can do. But what it does is it introduces you to those organizations. So when you then get out of the, Marine Corps or whatever, service you get out of, you already had this interaction. You already see that there's this community out there, and you're more open to having a conversation on day one of getting out because you've had these, you might know somebody, right? Or other veterans that got out and joined these things or are a part of them or whatever it is. Then say you didn't know anything about them, and then day one you get out, and now all of a sudden you're having these issues and struggles, and now you're trying to find organizations, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I think if we did that, it would definitely make people just more open because we've already been introduced to it. We've already started having conversations. We've made these personal relations, with these individuals, and it's not going to be something, completely new.
Yeah, it demystifies it. Yeah, and in the same way that recruiting, you see someone a recruiter going to the different high school sports or walking around the campus, so you're like, oh, that is someone who's in the armed forces. I see. It's not just a mystery anymore. What do you think? What do you think the best way for friends and supporters to reach out or to offer help is to make that connection? I know I'm asking you a tough question here because I don't quite have the answer, but
yeah, for me, it's just talk about it. Talk about your own stuff, right? Like, I hold no secrets that I went through a very dark time in my life, and I contemplated suicide, and it was because of a lot of different things, right? And it wasn't anything due to combat. It wasn't due to going on deployment or anything like that. I mean, those were factors in why my marriage as a whole kind of fell apart. But they weren't the issue at hand of why I had my own, mental health struggles. So I think by talking about it, it kind of opens up where other individuals are like, okay, well, I don't mind talking about my issues because I know that you're not going to judge, right? Because you can't, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
how could I judge you, right? Like me and you have talked offline. Like, how could I judge you about something that you went through, but I went through it also? And I don't think enough people talk about their problems still. I don't think that we have enough senior leaders that are open about their problems, large scale, non-scripted, right?
Right.
I'm sure that they have with their close friends and confidants, because again, it's still like, even now when I think back on it and I'm like, wow, like, how did I get to that place? And then why did I think of myself in that way? Why did I think so bad of myself? Where now it's like, yeah, I went and I got help. And guess what? It was the best thing that ever happened to me. I wouldn't be where I am now, and I wouldn't have what I believe is a successful career if I didn't go through what I did, but then also get the help necessary.
Yeah.
So with that, like, you're able to explain that as well. Like, look, boss, like, you're going through some struggles. Let's get some help. And not everyone's going to be able to get the same help, but you're at least able to be there for them. And I think when people realize that you're there for them and you're real and you've had your own issues and you're not going to judge them and you're not going to have, this like preconceived idea about mental health or the stigma, and they feel that you're open to it, that's going to bring them. And in a lot of ways, that they're going to gravitate towards you instead of someone else, because again, they know that you've already dealt with that and you're open to it, compared to, I don't know if, George over here has ever dealt with this, and I don't know what he thinks, but I mean, we're really good friends, but I just don't know. But, Joe over here, he has dealt with it and he's expressed it. And I know that he went through, mental health issues. And I know that he had, went through a divorce and all this other stuff. Like, I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to him. And I think that really is the thing, is just, it's not the answer overall, but I definitely believe that it would help us get to a more open spot to have that conversation when we're comfortable to have it.
Yeah. And it's a testament to just how that can work while someone is still active duty, like yourself. You got help and you've been able to maintain a successful career in the Marine Corps. And I think the worry is that if people open up, then their career is over, they're done for. But I mean, that's just not the case. But that's the fear. I get it. I mean, I would have thought the same thing while I was in. But I like what you say, because I think it's what's helped me talk to other people or help me be the person to listen to other people, is because, man, it was scary as shit, but I opened up about what was going on with me. And I think I know people gravitate towards that kind of authenticity, because I've seen it, obviously with you. I've seen it with other people I know who face their fears and open up about how they're doing. And I don't think it has to be looked at as, oh, they're doing this because they need attention, or they're doing this for any kind of pity, but just like a facts conversation. Like, these are the facts. This is what's going on. I'm not okay, but I'm trying to work on it, and getting the support, because we all want to support when we know someone's hurting. We all want to support. It's just none of us want to be the one getting supported, I think.
Yeah. You feel like you're not able to, provide the same that other individuals are, because, you're gone, or you're at this appointment, and, everyone else kind of having to pick up the slack, and you're like, oh, I don't want people to pick up my slack. And, we create this mindset that if you're out of the fight, like, everyone else isn't going to be able to do what they need to. And, it's like a single point of failure, and you believe that you're that single point. And if I'm gone and I'm out of it, like, these guys or gals, they're not going to be able to, accomplish the mission. And it's so opposite. I mean,
yeah,
I love the Marine Corps. I love being a Marine, but I understand that my time eventually will expire. And if it's, after just 20 or after 30, or if I'm allowed to go past that, eventually it's going to happen and I'm going to have to get out and I'm going to be replaced just like that. And when you realize that, then maybe it for me, it helps me. Like, we have a small group here for our staff. And when one person's gone, we can definitely feel, like, hey, all right, now we got to do this. We got to do this extra. We have so many different missions that are going on. There's sometimes where everybody is scattered. So if one person's gone, yeah, it's not what we would like. But at the end of the day, even if that one person is gone, because we've dealt with it, especially when it comes to COVID, even if someone's a little bit sick, hey, they're away from everybody. They get tested, they're gone, they're out of the fight. Guess what still happens though? The mission still gets accomplished here. Like, we still are able to do that. So even if it's me, as the first sergeant that needs to go ahead and go to a mental health appointment for a couple of hours, I have the faith and confidence in my group, my staff here, that I know they're going to be able to do what they need to without me being here. And it needs to be the same mentality for that Lance Corporal to know, like, hey, if you got to go and you got to get some help and you need to go to this appointment, don't worry. The other 20 Lance Corporals or the other 100 Lance Corporals or whatever it is are going to do it. Or guess what? Your NCO steps up and fills in for you. Or
Right.
That's what we have to start to create. And we do, but like on a broader scale, that you're not it. You know what I mean? Like, You're not the one that's, no matter what, you're not the one that everything is hinging on. Like if you come unhinged, then all hell breaks loose. It's not the reality. Somebody else, and this, it's what we do in war, right? And it's how we train, and it's how we get prepared for fight. Is we don't have the snake mentality. You cut the head of the snake off, right? The body dies, kind of thing. That's not how the Marine Corps has ever worked. It's not how. I've never been taught that, and I've never seen it. So you can't think of your mental health issues in the same way. Like, oh, well, if I'm gone, then I leave, I'm the head, I get cut off. Well, the team is the tail, the team dies. Like, that's not the reality.
No, not at all. Yeah. And the other thing about it that struck me as you're talking is that if you're getting help and if you're reaching, for support, ultimately you're doing that to increase your effectiveness long term. So you're out for the short term. When people think about suicide and say, like, I'm a burden, if I just, get myself out of the picture, then everyone will be better off. That turns out to be so much more of a burden on everybody. And that I don't know if that changes the conversation in people's mind, but getting help short term versus taking your own life, no question, getting the support is much better for everyone involved, including that individual.
Oh yeah. I look at suicide as, we need to, again, in my opinion, we need to add a negative connotation to suicide in a completely different way. And I look at suicide as abandoning your post. And what I mean by that is, I take, this well-known story, and won't name names, but an individual that abandoned his post, and the drama that came from that individual abandoning his post. His unit, searching for him. Some of his unit, was hurt, searching for him. Come to find out, he's alive. We trade Taliban for him. He comes back, he gets court-martialed. There's all this drama within, the Department of Defense of like what to do with this individual. Eventually gets court-martialed, an ADCEPT, the whole nine. But everything that was created by this individual leaving his post, right? Mm-hmm. It's the same with suicide. You leave your post, now your family and friends are asking questions, right? That's like your unit. They're asking, well, what could I have done better? What could I have done? Should I have called him more? Should I have done this? Should I have reached out to her? Whatever, right? Sometimes in that questioning, some of them get hurt in their own ways, right? They start to have their own mental health struggles. They're like, that was my best friend and he left us, he abandoned us. Like, he didn't care. Like, now what do I do? And sometimes, we have this like domino effect where now that individual, takes their life, right? Yeah. And then there's all these questions, and then we as an institution and organization, like, well, what could we have done to do this? And so there's all this drama that is created internally to their family, where they work, all of this different stuff. And it's like, wait a second, like you said, your family, your loved ones, somebody is not better off by you taking that route. You're actually
exactly
way more of an issue than whatever the issue was that you did, whatever the issue is that you have going on, and you getting the help that's necessary. Because again, when I contemplated suicide, I had no idea what my future would look like. My life is great now, but there's a lot of things that I do to make sure that it is great. There's a lot of steps that I take. There's a lot of things that I put in place, especially, like counterbalances to when I know that I'm getting, kind of down, or work is overwhelming, or family life, to counter those things. But it's because I now have the tools to do that. But again, when I was contemplating killing myself, at that moment, the only thing that I could think about was right then and there. And that's what happens. Like, we don't think about what could be. Life didn't get automatically better for me after I didn't do it. It took a couple of years, and it took a big revelation that I learned through my therapy, and realized, like, hey, I needed to work on myself. And once I fixed the things that I needed to, then I was more capable of, taking care of the bigger picture, family, friends, work, etc. But until we add this, this negative connotation to suicide, where people don't think that it's an option, they'll continue to consider it an option until we get to that place, if that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense. No, it makes a lot of sense. Like, I always think of during hard times, my mind goes back to, as a great analogy is being in boot camp and just hanging on that pull-up bar. First, it's like, no, we're still hanging on this pull-up bar, and for no end in sight. And it feels like that it's always going to be this bad. But to know, I guess, going into something like when you're getting down, that, okay, this is temporary. I'm feeling pretty bad right now, but there are things I can do, and it's not always going to be like this. What are some of the things you do on a regular basis to combat some of, being in a depressed mood, or being sad, or being down, or being kind of off your game?
So it was about a year after I went through my mental health issues, and I went through 6 months of therapy. And my therapist, talked about a lot of different things, but one of the things that, again, kind of stuck was like, hey, you have to work on yourself, right? You're the most important person in the room, and if you don't believe that, then you're going to think that something else is more important, and then you're going to worry about that more than you worry about yourself. So I created what I believe my life philosophy, right? I changed my life philosophy, which helped me change my mindset. But I believe that life is as easy as 2 words: decide and do. There's a lot that goes into that, but decide and do is kind of my personal philosophy. So in that, I rewired how I think about a lot of things. I listened to a lot of motivational videos, a lot of inspirational videos, a lot of podcasts, a lot of stories about other individuals. And again, like you said, the hard times that they went through, and saw where they were able to go afterwards. And it's like, wow, everything that I had going on in my life and what I have going on will never equate to that, right? I've listened to some stories about individuals that are just absolutely amazing. You're like, holy crap, that they were able to go through this. They had their own personal struggles, and then they were able to get the help and to move past it. So I put a lot of that on the drive in this morning, right? I'm listening to, Les Brown, motivational speaker, on the drive. That's the first thing that I listen to, right? I don't go and turn on the news. I don't listen to
Yeah.
the chaos of the world. I listen to something that's going to get me upbeat, right? To reinforce those thoughts that I already have in my mind. Like, hey, today is what I make it, right? And even if today and work happens after this is over, like, right, and all of a sudden I get crazy emails or some kind of grenade goes off where now I have to like deal with it. I can still get done with that work day, and I can still make it where, hey, this day at the end of it is a great day. So for me, I do a lot of that. I do a lot of ensuring that I'm good. And when I ensure that I'm good, then I can ensure that my wife and my kids are good. I can ensure that work is good. I can ensure that I have, the opportunities that I didn't have at the moment, right? Because I thought my career was over. I thought that I would not be able to have a successful career. I thought that, not only my career was over, but my life was over as a whole at that time. So when I redid some of those things and I rewired how I thought, and I really changed my mindset on things. And again, it just introduced a lot of, I know it sounds, corny, but like good vibes.
Yeah.
When I introduced that on a daily basis, life was a 180, a complete 180 from where I was.
Yeah, it's such an important thing. And, you're in good company because, professional athletes, like I know Russell Wilson of the Seattle Seahawks does exactly that. Fills his mind, fills his life with positive messaging, inspirational quotes, everything to keep those, like you say, those good vibes going on. And it was highlighted in a book I think everyone should read called "It Takes What It Takes," written by his, what would you call him? Mental health performance coach, Trevor Moawad. Anyways, I love your story. I love what you've gone through, and I love just the message that you have, and just the living testimony that you are, that you can have mental health struggles, and it's okay not to be okay. And you're someone obviously who cares a lot about his fellow service members. So I appreciate you coming on today, and thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate the opportunity. I think that this is, at the end of the day, this is exactly what needs to happen. The conversation on as many platforms and as many, ways as possible. This isn't, we talk about this during September, kind of an issue. And until we get there as a society and as an institution where this is something we freely talk about or freely hear about, we're not going to get down to the core of getting a hold of and eventually as a whole.
Exactly. And for people who haven't seen your video yet, we're going to post a link to that in the show notes so everyone can check it out. And I just appreciate you sharing your story. So thanks a lot.
Thank you, boss. I appreciate you having me on.
Rah. All right, everyone, that'll do it for this week of Transitions for More. Go ahead and subscribe to the show, follow it. Find us on Facebook, Instagram. You can email me, mike@transitionsformore.com, with any questions or ideas for the show. And please send the show to people you know who might need to listen to it. Leave us a rating and review on iTunes if you get a chance. And just thanks for listening. All right, everyone. See you next week. Bye-bye.